All right, we are ready to go.
We are ready to go, and you can hear yourself not more than
Yeah,
once,
more than once. Yeah,
and
I've got a 2/10 of a
you
second delay here.
and we know what each other is saying. So
That's the
uh,
important part.
these are all technical issues that we had just before we started, but now we may or may not sound professional today. So uh,
When have we ever sounded professional?
well, I try to try to ramp it up a little bit in the morning. So morning, everybody. Jesus. So we're getting just to tell anybody who's listening what's going on. We're both in Ontario, and I'm in Niagara, and you're a little bit north. You're
Yeah,
north of, say, Lake Ontario. Let's say. How far are you from, say, Toronto? Let's
2 hours. Yep.
2 hours. Yeah,
The,
but a
the
little more
best way
north.
to describe where we are is if you take a dot at the center of Toronto, a dot at the center of Ottawa, and divide it by two, we're about 10 kilometers from that point.
Oh wow. Okay.
Yeah.
And yeah, we are going through a snowstorm. I don't know if you watched sports on the weekend, but I saw what was going on in Denver. I played football in the snow, and
Ah.
we. You say you got about 6 inches. I think Niagara got a little bit more than that. Like it's crazy around here. So
Yeah.
I
I've seen
do not
reports in
know what's going on
Scarborough
this one.
of like 8 and more inches. So,
Yeah, we got like tons. So
yeah.
yeah, I don't mind the snow as long as I stay inside. The moment I want to go outside, though, I had to take my car out of the driveway, and it's not the road is not good.
No.
So
Well, our taxes up here are not exactly light, but the roads get cleared really well. So that's where the money goes.
I guess, like
Yeah.
Jesus.
Yeah.
But
And
anyway,
I
all
think we're
right.
lucky. Like that storm just wiped out North America, right? Like
Yeah,
at least we didn't get the freezing rain. I haven't seen the news reports, but I'm sure there's a lot of people down there who are out of power and won't see it for a while.
I had my landlady send me a text and said we should fill up buckets with water, flush our toilets, open taps, open cupboards so the pipes don't freeze, blah blah blah. And I have to admit, I said I am not preparing for Armageddon. I'm not buying a gun. I'm not carrying a lot of cash. I am. It's going to snow. I'm going to stay inside. That's what's going to happen.
Yeah,
So
that's a power failure thing. Like if you lose power for 3 or 4 days, everything's going to freeze, right?
look, I lived through the power outage on the East Coast, as
Yeah,
you did.
yeah,
We were both in Toronto at that time. That lasted a few days. Like
yeah. But it wasn't -10, -15.
no, it was the summer.
Yeah,
I got that. I get
yeah,
that. But I mean, if you think about it, and this is not a political show in any way, shape, or form, but like I mean, I've got water outside. There's ways to milk it. I'm not. It's
you're missing the point. The point is, if the lines freeze, then they burst, and then you've got water leaks everywhere. So what she's asking you to do is winterize, basically, so that the
uh,
toilet doesn't break when the water freezes, right? Like I had a place that was out in the middle of nowhere, and we didn't go there much in the winter. So you put antifreeze in the toilet, so that the toilet's there when you get back.
well, put it this way. I think my girlfriend ate something funny,
Mm.
and our toilet was well. It was well used yesterday, so I don't think we were anywhere any
Yeah,
in
that's
any
the
worry.
alternative. Is you make sure that the lines are running, right? Like just
So
don't let it freeze up. I came back from a trip to Ottawa when I lived in Ottawa or in Toronto rather, and the place we had rented, somebody had taken the dryer vent and just shoved a towel in there. There was no dryer, and it was cold and windy, and that enough cold came through to freeze a water line. And so we got home to 6 inches of water in the basement, and one of these pipes pouring water onto our electrical panel. That was fun.
That's not good.
No,
Yeah,
that
see,
was
there are the extremes.
yeah, yeah.
I
Uh,
fully get it.
that was
So,
call the hydro guys and get them to shut the power off and then shut the water off.
and then hope for the best.
Well, then
So,
fortunately it was a rental, so it was call the landlord and say your problem. Yeah.
and that's where I'm at. I have to be honest. That's where I'm at. I'm like, okay, with the landlord going. But I'm dressed in my little warmers. Sorry, I couldn't find a black one. I have a blue one that says the Seattle Seahawks on it. It seemed like the right one to wear today, but I was already wearing this one for yesterday, so I just threw this one back on.
All right,
So
man. Yeah.
go Hawks.
There you
Anyway,
go.
last week, um, you were. Let's start with you.
Yep.
You had printed your manuscript, 298 pages. You were on
Yep.
page 87.
Yep.
Word count obviously was not something we were worried about, and you were looking at a 2-week edit, which
Yep.
means we are now 2 weeks away from that. You should be done your edit and should be happy as a clam and know where you're going.
I have
And
finished
where
the
are we?
edits.
Oh, good. All
The
right.
the edits have not been put into the manuscript, so I'm in the
Okay.
process now of going through and dropping everything in, and of course questioning my edits.
Of course, that's something you always do, right? Was I right to cut that? Was I right to keep that? Which I think is one of those things that as writers we go through. You make the cut, and then when you go to, if you're like us, where we do it on paper, and then you go because I don't like to edit um, on the computer
Hmm.
because then it's gone for good. Like you change it all, and you're like, oh, it's gone. I can't, did I? Sometimes I have actually copied and pasted them into a document to
Right.
keep that phraseology in case I need it again.
Sure.
And I've
Yeah.
done that.
Yeah. I mean,
But
that's if I actually had a discussion on a group about this. I mean, if there's something that scene that you really like, but it turns out that it just isn't going to work on the story. It's like, what do you do when you put it on the cutting room floor? And it's like, well, if you really like it and you think you can use it someplace, or even if it's an idea for using it someplace, then copy it and stick it into a folder of notes, right? And then,
and,
you know,
and I have done that, and it turns out I never go back to it. But I know I have them there. They're like little bits of my life that I've written, but I've never gone back to that folder.
yeah,
Never to look again.
I use this tool called Cherry Tree, which is a weird name. French guy picks his names for stuff, but it's a hierarchical note-keeping uh, Swiss Army knife, and I've really become addicted to it as my notepad. So I'll put notes for everything in there, and because it's hierarchical, I can order them all and get them all in the right place. And so everything I've learned about self-publishing, story writing, all my notes. If I watch a video, I'll make notes while I'm watching it, and then go back and reference those and decide whether or not I want to rewrite it or reference it later when I go, wait a second, what did I learn from that? Because I don't want to go back and spend another hour watching a video. I want to spend 5 minutes reading my notes.
This cherry tree, is it for writers, or is it just a note taking app for anything?
It's a general thing. Like, what's the... There was another app that I used, and then they enshittified. I can't even remember its name. And when it turned stupid, I went, okay, I'm going to find something that's open source and cross-platform, and use that. And
Yeah,
so,
I use Notes. I use Google Notes for
right,
most of my notes, which is pretty good. I'll tell you that. I've never used Cherry Tree, but I use Google Notes, and now granted things do get lost way at the bottom. There is no hierarchical thing, and
right,
every so often I have to go through it and go, oh well, that note doesn't. I don't need that anymore, and I dump it. But
right. Yeah. Well, we've already had a discussion this week about relying on Google.
Yeah,
So,
yeah. I just found that out. That my email will not be. I don't understand why they would do that. I understand what you said at that time. You said that they obviously aren't getting the ad revenue from it, but I mean, you've talked millions and millions and millions of people probably into using Google as their default program
right.
for their app for their email, and now you tell them ah.
Right.
So
So, for people who are out of context, this is this system that they had where you could hook up your Hotmail and AOL accounts, and it would bring it all into your Google app.
yeah,
And they're turning that off. So,
yeah.
I think the initial
That's
reason why they
according
did
to
that was so that they could get the eyeballs and get the ad revenue. And now they're at the point where it's like, well, if we turn this off, a whole bunch of people are going to just switch to Gmail because, I mean, Hotmail sucks. Like, and I'm being generous. And AOL is, I think, rebranded Hotmail. So it's maybe just a play to get more people to actually go to Gmail, and then they can find out more about their users and train their AI and
yeah,
generate
but if you have your
better
own,
shit.
like, again, but if you have your own website, if you're an author and you have your own website, which
Yeah.
brings us back to where we're at, and you have your Google phone, let's say, and Gmail takes it over anyway, you know, you
No.
want to bring your email into that,
No,
right?
I used an app on Android called K9 Mail, and a couple of years ago, the Thunderbird guys picked it up. So now it's Thunderbird for Android, and I got Thunderbird on my desktop. And so, again, relatively independent, open source, um, and Google can suck my inbox.
Hey, so Thunderbird for Android. All right, well there we go.
Yeah.
Because I do have Thunderbird on my stuff as well. All right, I've written it down. I'm going to look into that this week because I have to. Otherwise, I would be with you, Google. I know Google's probably not listening, but they do listen kind of just through the ether, you know.
Oh, we're
So
posting this
again,
to YouTube, so they're going to index it. Yeah.
yeah, they'll hear their name in there somewhere, and I'm sure we'll be bleeped out for the whole thing. So you're finished your edits. You're editing, and so that's where you're at basically,
Yeah.
and then you're going to head back to the drawing board, I guess, and finish up the novel. Is where
What
you're
I'm going
at.
to do, once the edits are in, I'm going to print it again. This time without all the synopsis notes and the comments and all that kind of crap, so that I can read it as a reader, and I'll make notes along the way. I think there's a couple of places where I already want to move something to increase a little bit of tension. I'm telling people things a little too early, so I might need to find a way to move that around. And then I'll compare those notes with the notes that I've got already in Novel Writer. And if both notes correlate, then I'll implement what's in the note. And if they don't, then I'll just give it a real hard look and decide whether or not one makes sense over the other or whatever. And then I'll finish this sucker.
So myself, I'm going to start with my word count because I was still rocking and rolling on that. 7,253.
Wow.
So by the time, let me see, your last word count, I think was 72,791. I think I have finally. Let me just. I'm going to check my program here for a quick second. 74,717. So that's where I'm at, and that's so I finally did pass you.
Yay.
We kind of figured that was going to happen.
Yes.
So anyway, that's where I am. But now And here's the interesting part as I make my notes for our for next week so that we can keep track of things. So now, basically on Friday, NYC midnight. I don't know if everybody's
You've mentioned it,
aware of
yeah.
that, or you're aware of that.
Yeah.
They have writing contests, and basically, I've now had to put everything aside, and now I have a short story of 2,000 words
Ah.
to write. And as I wrote it yesterday, inputted it, and I'm over by almost 300 words. So now I have to go in and
The hard part.
surgically, yeah, surgically remove the things that I have enjoyed writing about that story. But before we get to that, last week's hook. Hopefully, we've saved enough time for this.
Oh yeah, we're
But we talked
10 minutes in.
we talked we talked about the role of AI
Hmm.
in artistry, and or we at least laid the hook in on that.
Yeah,
So you're more of a tech guy
I am.
than I am. I, as people who look at have looked at my version of the podcast on my channel, would have seen how Alan and I met, which was through basically websites,
Yeah.
in particular mine as a wine writer. And so you have probably have more of an opinion than I do about AI.
I do, and ironically, I'm an old school AI guy. Like back in university, I did some stuff. Um, there's a secret society of AI guys. Some of the top people in the field. It's the Knights of the Lambda Calculus. There's actually a Wikipedia page for it. But
So it's not SSAI, Secret
no,
Society of
no,
AI. Okay.
no, no. And there's a little pin with a lambda on it, and at the time, the way most AI algorithms worked, it the the mathematics is called lambda calculus, which is about going down a decision tree and trying to find the best answer. Blah blah blah. All technical. I was going to wear my Knights of the Lambda Calculus that pin, but I forgot. Yeah. So that's you know I did some language recognition stuff way back in the early 70s. And I've played around with AI since. Uh, this is never going to be produced, but this is a little piece of sculptural art that I did. This path was assisted by an AI algorithm known as a genetic search. So, I'm not opposed to AI, but when it comes to generative AI, to creating art and stories, um, I'm trying to make this distinction here. As humans, we see art, we read things, and we assimilate that, and then if we decide to be creative, some of what we've assimilated comes back out in the work that we produce. But we add a layer of originality, right? I mean, if you look at the bookcase behind me, it's full of books on, the great masters of painting and architecture and all these other things. So all that stuff's come into my head, and if I decided to be a painter, I would subconsciously be relying on a lot of what I've learned as part of my creative process. But I'd be adding something. And in generative AI, somebody's creating a prompt that says, okay, I want to see something like this. But that's the aperture of originality. Just some prompt. I want to see a school bus with an elephant on top. Well, I generating that is possible, but it's not the same process as learning how to generate it and putting it together and actually laying it out. Um,
So let me pose a question, kind of on this line, again, because you just know more about this than I do. I use AI in such a small capacity in my life. I am told that basically, when I moved from, I used to listen to vinyl. I now am back to listening to vinyl. My brother at one point called me a vinyl dinosaur, and said it
yeah.
would never come back. Well, now, he was the one. I saw him. He still listens to vinyl, and I'm like, well, screw you, and the whole nine yards. But so I use AI in a small capacity, and I think we've discussed that. What I do is I have this program called Letterly. I read because I frickin' hate typing, and I hate long typing, and I hate having because I'm a hunt and pecker
Yep.
to a point. I'm like a two-finger typist,
Yep.
and so um, I read it into Letterly, tell it to basically, it's called Slightly, which basically it turns it into exactly what I said, but adds the periods, the commas, and the quotation marks
Right.
in, because I tell it, quote, blah blah blah, close quote. And if you just leave it, it would have, quote, comma, it would spell that out. This time, if I do Slightly, it plays with the punctuation, and that's all I want it to do. I don't want it to do what's called magic, which is change the whole thing.
Right.
So, as I said, I'm in a writing competition now. 2,000 word story over a week. You have to create it, and you get like 20 people in your group, let's say. And in my group, we've been given a ghost story, a budgeteer, and a collection. Those are the three things that have to be part of this story. In theory, because we're human, the 20 of us are going to come up with 20 completely different stories.
Right.
Completely. Like no two are going to be the same.
Right.
Now, let's say we had 20 AI generating systems, and you fed that exact same thing. Are they going to come up with the same story? Is somebody going to come up with the same story? Are they going to be similar?
So
Or are they going to give you 20 different stories as well?
what you get from a prompt is in generative AI. I'll have to go back and talk about the whole class of AI algorithms because, when you're using a spell checker, you're using an AI algorithm, right? So, in the scope of generative AI, what you get from a prompt is the statistically most probable answer. So, theoretically, if two people contribute the exact same prompt, they're going to get the same result. But were I a writer who wanted to cheat, I'd be going, okay, well, my idea is those three elements you've got, but I also want a car bomb. So I'd put that into my prompt, and I'd get a different story back from the story you got back, right? So if all 20 of you did the same thing, you might get a couple of stories that are very close, but you might get some other stories that are vastly different, depending on what the prompts were.
That's because you said you added a fourth prompt. But if I
Right.
gave it the three prompts, a budgeteer, collection, ghost story, write something.
If you
What are the
both use
chances
the
that I?
same model at the same time, then you're probably going to get the same story,
All right.
right?
So, but with 20 human beings, you're going to get completely radically different stories.
Right. Yeah. And somebody who's cheating is going to write a prompt differently or use a different model than you will. So you get different stories as well, but they're just statistically probable stories.
And then, you know, when the actors and the writers went on strike a few years ago, for in Hollywood, like one of the biggest things that they had was the worry about AI.
Right.
and AI generating scripts, which obviously the studios could do all day long. Could generate us a script about this, about that, about the other thing, and the writers were like, "You cannot do that."
Right.
What is the likelihood that that is being done anyway?
Somebody's probably doing it. I think, if you read something that's generated by AI, it's hard to characterize, and there are people who've got algorithms that are trying to figure it out. But there's something about AI generated text. Like for one of my businesses, the local chamber of commerce said, we want to do features on everybody. Send us a profile, or we could put something together. And I was busy, so I said, look, this is this. These are the things that I'd like to say. If you want to put something together, be my guest. And a day later, I got back this awful, flowery, super description. And it's like, oh, you used ChatGPT to put that together. But it also let me go in and tear out the stuff that I didn't, that wasn't right, that was just over the top, and get a pared down thing that actually said what I wanted to say, right? But that first output
Oh, then
was easily
basically
recognizable.
editing becomes easier. Is that what you're getting
That's
at?
it.
The editing
Yeah.
of the
I
whole
mean,
thing becomes a little easier.
and I used it. We, I've got this 3D printing business, and how do you explain to somebody who knows nothing about 3D printing what you do? And so I used, I think, ChatGPT a couple of years ago and said, explain a business that does this in a way that's that somebody who's non-technical would understand. And it came back with this big block of crap, but there were phrases in there that captured what I wanted, like 3 or 4 words. So I pulled that stuff out and stuck it into the description I already had, because that was, it was just like, I can't wrap my head, or I can't be in a space where I don't understand the tech, right? And that tool let me get words that made sense to somebody who wasn't involved in the tech, and so that's what went into my description for the business. Yeah.
So, like, I guess I remember a friend of mine who is in marketing, and basically he uses ChatGPT or one of these AIs to create letters for him.
Yeah.
I need a whatever he needs, and he's at one point I said to him, "Here's what I've got to write." He goes, "Oh, I'm just going to throw it through ChatGPT." Oh, we got the dogs again this
Yeah.
week.
Yeah. Well, we got Baxter visiting.
So, and I said, we need to send something out, and he goes, "Oh, I'll just don't write it. I'll have the AI do it."
Right.
And I felt, well, that to me seemed like cheating. I guess people don't see it that way, but it takes away the the personal from that letter. But he says, no, it's a business letter, so it's got to seem more
Exactly.
business.
Have you tried
But I
Grammarly?
no, I use Pro Writing Aid.
Okay. So I had Grammarly for a little while, and it picked up little things like, it's like passive voice here, stuff that was useful. But it kept on suggesting that I make everything more boring and vanilla. And I thought, this would be great if I was trying to write a white paper, right?
Yeah.
Because it's got no character, right? It's like, let's just take all the quirks out of your language and make it the statistically most probable expression of what you want to say.
Like yesterday, I watched the movie The English Patient. I hadn't seen that in 28 years or whatever it is. Turns out it was, by the way, the day. Like, I guess when the Oscars used to be in January, I asked Alexa what the when the movie actually came out, or when it won Best Picture, and it said it won it actually today, 28 years ago or whatever, and I was like, oh, neat. But in that movie, Ralph Fiennes' character says, you know, car is still a car, and they said to him, the paper you wrote, I've never read a paper so devoid of adjectives in my life. And he says a car is still a car, whether you have a blue car or a red car or a broken car. A car is still a car, right? And what you're saying is that's what AI is giving you, the vanilla version of a car.
In
Um,
that case, yeah. And what most people are using it for is that kind of thing. But then we'll go back to the marketing person from our board of trade who sent this thing back, and it came off with a bunch of flowery crap that it's like, oh, this is the best thing ever. It's like, no, it's just good.
so you said you use Grammarly. I use and still have Pro Writing Aid. I used it for a year, and then it's one of these programs that you have to buy year after year,
Yeah.
unless you get the lifetime. I got a deal on the lifetime, so I went, screw it, I'm just going to get it because it seems like I'm going to be a writer for the rest of my days. So I might as well have backup, let's say.
Yeah.
Some of the extras that it has based on AI are pretty interesting. Like they have a thing where it reads your manuscript and tells you who your writing style is like. It'll give you some ideas of maybe punch something up here. You're too slow here, that kind of thing. Um, but when it comes down to the nitty gritty of, let's say, a chapter,
Hmm.
I'm fine with it telling me where commas should go, and if I've got a
Exactly.
spelling error here, those are all great. But for the most part, when it tells me that some rephrasing is necessary, I find those to be the most idiotic rephrasings I've ever
Exactly.
heard.
Exactly.
I, out of, let's say, out of every 10 rephrasing, I may take one,
Yep.
and I'm like, okay, maybe they've got it here. But the rest of it, it's completely bland, boring, changes completely the meaning of the sentence, the paragraph, everything like that.
Yeah. I found that so irritating that I just uninstalled Grammarly. Right? It's like I see the benefit of knowing where I should put a comma, but this noise of saying fix this thing that's not broken, I
Yeah.
just no, go away.
Yeah, that part bothers me, and I stopped. Basically, I've turned that part off. I said
Mm.
I don't want to know.
Right.
And then sometimes I turn it on just for the fun of it, and it gives me like six orange lines, and I go, okay, let me see what it's going to say, and I'm like, no, that's not what I meant. That's not even close. No, no,
Now,
no. He's not shooting the mail. He's not shooting the mailbox. Um,
now on the other hand,
so
you can be dead sure that agents and publishers are using more sophisticated tools than that to evaluate manuscripts. Right. So
yeah,
now you send a manuscript in, and it goes to an algorithm, and the algorithm goes, oh yeah, this is crap, or this is decent. It looks like this guy's style. It's got this many problems, and I'm sure agents and publishers and editors look at it and go, okay, well, yeah, this one. I'll actually read this one. And the other guys are just gone. It's like send them the
yeah.
sorry, we don't have anything for you letter.
It's sad that that's what it's come to, because it used to be the days when people used to read stuff. And I don't know if that's true. I don't know, because I have sent a number of publishers and agents, and they all say they've read through it. I read all my stuff, blah, blah, blah. Some of them come back way too quickly.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe they're just going from the synopsis you've given them, and they're just like, I'm not reading that.
Yeah.
Um, but, interestingly, I haven't submitted probably in about 6 months. And some of them are not coming back now. And I'm like, yeah, well, at least they read it. At least
Yeah.
that's my feeling, that if you given 3 to 6 months, then yeah, you probably read it. When the answer comes back in 2 weeks, I'm like, wow, I've known some fast readers in my time. Not that fast.
you can be sure that most of them haven't read it through, right? Like,
Yeah.
I've seen interviews with agents, and they're like, I'll read a couple of chapters, and if it grabs me, then I'll read the rest.
Yeah.
But if it doesn't, and like it's like sometimes three paragraphs in, right? And I think I don't know about you, but I've seen self-published work, and yeah, three paragraphs in, it's like this never made a shoulda to release.
Yeah.
It's like
Well, I know,
God.
like, so I'm off to Italy in mid-February, and I basically sent one of my novels through, and I'm hoping going to finish the one I'm writing now once I finish the short story. Um, I'm going to finish that novel, put it on a shelf for a bit, and then I have, through Pro Writing Aid, I have written off a report, or I printed off the report that it has for the novel that I am shopping around. And I'd like to see, like, go through it chapter by chapter, verse by verse, and see what it thinks the book requires, and then maybe create like a second version of the book through what it says. Obviously, my ideas, my writing, my everything, just taking its advice to
Hmm.
see, if it makes a difference. And it's just advice. Like, AI can give me advice all at once. It can't write things for me, and that's where I think it's cheating.
Yeah, and this is why I always say generative AI versus all these other AI tools, right? Like that tool's going to tell you about your work, but it's not going to go, here's a new paragraph that fixes this shit, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So,
So, so where do we stand on AI? I guess, like, I don't want to use it a lot, especially when I'm being creative. That's I'm okay with it editing, a little bit, just enough to maybe fix a sentence, fix grammar. It can give me suggestions. I don't always take them. I feel my style is not the AI style, but that's probably where I stop
right.
with AI.
Yeah.
And so creatively, that's where I stop. Yourself, are you in the same boat, or?
It's, yeah, I think pretty much, you know, I have a bit of a moral dilemma here. So I have some ideas of what I want for the cover of this book, but I'm not a very good artist, and I don't even think that I could sketch something for an artist that would convey what I'm thinking about. So I've used generative AI to say, give me an image of, it's like my main character with these attributes, which are all geeky and everything else, and I get something back that's awful, but better than what I could draw or put into words. And so I want to. I've done that with two or three parts of what I want to see on the cover, and when it gets around to the point where I'm engaging an artist to do the cover, I want to send those images over and say, this is what I'm thinking about for this part. This is what I'm thinking about for this bit, and these are the other bits. Figure out, do something original, but that's the brief, right? That's that's just the overall concept. I don't need to see anything specific from what I've sent over. I'm just trying to convey the idea, and then go wild and show me what you come up with. And I'm wrestling over whether or not that generation of those images, even though they're not being published or anything, they're just being communicated, violates my ethics or not.
Yeah, I think that's where it comes down. So I've hired somebody to do my website, like an actual person.
Mhm.
I'm hoping to God they actually do what they need to do. I'm sure they'll use a little bit of AI as well, but I I've hired somebody to create a logo for me,
Hmm.
and uh, just based on my name or something
Right.
that gives me something. And they came back with a few things that looked, obviously that it came out of their head. And I remember them asking me, what do you want it to be?" And I'm like, "You're the artist. Here's what I'll tell you. Here's my name. Whether you use my middle name or not, it's totally up to you. But here's my name. Here's what I do. I write mysteries and thrillers. Go to town. Give me something that comes
Right.
to mind when you see that." And I think that's, I don't want to give them too much. I
Exactly.
like creative people to be creative.
Right. Yeah. And for a logo, that makes a lot of sense, right? For a book cover, it's got to hit genre requirements. It's got to do like
Correct. Yeah.
everybody judges a book by its cover.
Mates cover. Yeah. Look, I'm in the
So,
wine business. 80% of wine is bought because of the label,
right.
not because I can tell you it's the greatest wine in the world. People don't like the label. Half the world's not going to buy it for sure.
Exactly. Yeah.
So,
So,
and I get book Bob or whatever it is every
mhm,
day with the books that are on sale, and I go sailing by the books that if I look like the cover, I'll stop and I'll read the synopsis. If I don't,
right.
we're
Yeah,
off.
exactly.
Being off it does not mean that you're immune to marketing. I guess
Exactly. Yeah. Yeah.
so. So I think that kind of closes the door on AI for now until we get to or at least our opinions on AI, until it gets to the next level, and then we'll have to probably come back and have this discussion all over again.
Right.
Uh,
Yeah.
Probably.
I mean, these algorithms have no element of creativity, right? They're simply devices that respond to this, to give you the statistically most probable response to a prompt, right? And you can do a lot with that, right? Like there are people who are writing software using nothing but AI, people who don't have coding skills, who are producing applications. And I don't think I have as much of a problem with that as a developer because, sure, code is poetry, but it's something that nobody ever really reads, like aside from a small team of people. Um, what's important in being a software developer is delivering a solution. And so these tools, if they make it easier to deliver a solution and somebody is looking at it for all the standard security holes and testing and all the other stuff that you need to do that's part of software engineering, then who cares if it was generated by an AI or five people sitting in a shop in India?
Right, writing code, and I get that something that's technical like that way, it makes sense to use them because they probably will fill the holes and the gaps that a code writer probably might miss.
Um,
Um,
so far, it's getting there. For the longest time, like for the a couple of years ago, you'd get something that looked like it worked, but it would have massive security holes and deeply hidden bugs. So I don't want to get deep into software development, but now you can run security audits on things. You can have it generate tests, and then validate that it's really doing what it's doing based on the tests that are generated. And I still think you need a human to go in and do a audit, for lack of a better word, to make sure that things are cool, and then throw it to a team of people who try to break it, and then maybe you've got good code.
I guess I come back to, I heard a comedian once say that AI can't tell a joke.
Right.
And um, that way he always knows that his job is safe because AI can't tell a joke. It just doesn't have the nuance. It doesn't have the delivery. And maybe as writers we can take away that it can tell a story, but it can't give us that nuance that
Right.
a good story needs. Maybe.
Well, here's another one. What about audiobooks? Because there are tools out there where I can give it a sample of my speech, send it the manuscript, and it'll send back an audio file of me reading the manuscript.
So how many people do you think use that?
I'm. It's probably used a fair bit. Uh, I
See,
played around with it.
as a as a voice performer,
Yep.
that scares me because that means
Uh
I'm
huh.
out of a job yet again.
Yeah.
How many times I've lost jobs because AI can now, do your on hold messaging, do your voicemail, do all of the prompts that I used to do sitting behind a microphone. It's one of the things that AI now generates on its own.
Yeah. I mean, a lot of that's being done badly with speech synthesis, right?
Hmm.
It's like,
Oh, I
um,
see. If you're watching YouTube and you see those commercials come up, it's the same voice over and over and over again. And
exactly.
that's the AI guy, and it mispronounces things, and
Right.
that are totally everybody in the world knows that word, and then suddenly it goes whatever,
Right.
and you go, yeah, that's totally AI generated.
And I think, were I to use that, I'm not sure I would. There's going to be lots of places where it's wrong. Like it's got the intonation wrong, the pace wrong, whatever else. And so maybe a hybrid approach where the stuff that gets right, you leave there and you re record the stuff that's not right. And it saves you time. Like book production is expensive, right? And
Yeah.
audiobooks don't find a big premium in pricing, which is why you don't see a lot of audiobooks, right?
So I know that for my website, the team, I guess I have a team now, because
Ah,
my girlfriend's the head of that team, um, wants me to produce my books as audiobooks, obviously.
yes.
And I think I said to them, look, I'll start with a few of the short stories that we put onto the site because that's what I'm going to kind of, I want to sell novels, but I will happily put some of the short stories that I did for NYC Midnight or any of the competitions that I did, happily put them up and create the audio the audio for them as well. So
Right.
that's something I know that I'm going to have to get behind the mic and read my own stories at some point. I've read them out to this room. I don't know
exactly.
if I've read them into a microphone before. We'll see if it shouldn't be any different, really. Anyway,
Yeah.
so that concludes that for this week. I do have a hook,
Okay.
as we do throw it, and I thought I would kind of be a little bit selfish this week, and bring it to something that I'm doing. As I said, I basically had to pause the book that I'm writing now, and suddenly I'm in the middle of a contest to do a short story. And I hope this week for both of us to think about, because now I'm in the middle of it, is pausing to write something else. As writers, we
Mm,
get locked in to our book for a year or however long it takes us to write, edit, and whatever we do with that book. But then suddenly something comes along and it goes boom, slams the door on that, and you have a week to come up with something else. Is that easy? Is it difficult? Can you juggle all of that? We'll talk about that next week.
excellent. And we got a bonus soundtrack from Hungry Cat.
Oh, Hungry Cat's always important, so take care of that as well. Alan, you have a good week. Enjoy the rest of the snow.
Yes.
Um, and thanks for your AI input, you part of the SSAI.
You're welcome.
See you later.
Take care.